If you go to an ATM machine and you want to change money in Barcelona, you'll find Catalan, that's the Barcelona language. You'll find Spanish. You'll find Gallego, northwestern Spanish language. You'll find Euskara, which is the Basque language, and then German, French, English, and everybody else. Now, if you go to Basque country, you will find Basque, and you'll certainly find Catalan, because there's an empathy and a solidarity among downtrodden, what they call nations without states. These are nations without states. There's a lot of nations without states. They do the border, French people here, Spanish people there. Oh, Basque people? We'll learn to speak French. It's not quite that easy, is it? And Europe has learned that. This man is the Indiana Jones of archaeologists in Austria, as far as I'm concerned. He loves to renovate castles and make an educational thing out of it. When he wants money, he goes to Brussels, and he doesn't say, I've got a great project for Austria. He goes to Brussels, and he says, I've got a great project for the Tyrol. Because Brussels isn't going to give him anything for Austria. Brussels is going to give him something for an ethnic region that ignores modern political boundaries. The Tyrol has nothing to do with Austria. It's part Italy, and it's part Austria. It's named after a town in Italy, actually. We think of it as Germanic. But that's an ethnic region, and he gets money from Brussels to celebrate Tyrolean culture. All over Europe, you will find new freeways and new roads, new bridges and tunnels, and when you see them, you see a European flag. And this really says, brought to you by Germany and France. Because you're in this big free trade zone, we're giving you roads and bridges, now get to work, because we got some business to do. We're competing on a global scale. Europe has a very inspirational sort of internal Marshall Plan, investing in their infrastructure like we can't imagine. It's amazing what they're building. And when you travel, you see new bridges. This is in Greece. Greeks cannot build this bridge. This is European money, building a bridge in a sparsely populated country. All over Europe, you've got bullet trains. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing what's going on with the infrastructure. This is the biggest train station in Europe now. Major train lines coming together at right angles on various levels in Berlin. Last time I was in Munich, I was taking pictures of trains coming into the stations, specifically taking pictures of birds squished to the windshields of trains coming into the stations. I suppose if you're a bird lover, this is bad news, but if you're an infrastructure lover, this is quite an exciting thing. When I saw that bird there on that train in Munich, it occurred to me, you wait all your life to see a bird squished to the windshield of a train in Seattle. And those trains aren't fast enough. More business travelers travel from London to Paris now by train than by all airplanes put together. It's so slick. I'm not saying it's right for us. We're so wedded to cars and so on. But what they're able to do with their public money and their determination to have infrastructure is really mind-blowing. Now, for a decade, we've had to deal with America's brand in the dump. I went doing some legislating in Washington, D.C. and for Bread for the World last year, and something I heard time and time again was America's brand is in trouble, and we've got to learn to wage soft power instead of hard power if we're going to be pragmatic. Now, I think I'm in the business of promoting travel and so on, and it's so important for people who are traveling to realize that there was a time when a lot of Americans were sporting Canadian flags. And that breaks my heart to think that Americans travel overseas and have to hide the fact of who they are. I have never done that. I've never found it's worthwhile. Because I've always found, even in the worst of times, as far as America's brand goes, if you present yourself as an individual American, curious about their culture and respectful, they will consider you as an American and they'll like you. Regardless of our foreign policy, which changes with the wind, regardless of that, the ideals of America are as shiny and inspirational as ever. It's bigger than our country even. The ideals of America, that's what America means. And we can carry that torch or we can be an embarrassment as far as those ideals go. But those ideals will persist and they're considered American ideals. Now, a lot of people who are concerning traveling, they're worried about going over there because don't they hate Americans? They've seen all that kind of anti-American stuff. They love Americans. They just don't always agree with our foreign policy. It's a very interesting dynamic. I took 1,000 people to France last year. I quizzed them after every tour. How were you received by the locals? Nobody reports being received coldly, as long as they don't go there and try to teach the French how to do it right. You'll get nowhere with that approach, okay? I was filming in Burgundy, the most profoundly French part of the French countryside. And when I'm filming, get out of the way, the sun's going down, I don't have time for tea, we got to shoot your castle. Now how do I get up onto the roof with my camera, you know? And this cute mom and pop whose aristocratic family had run this castle for generations said, no, we have an American film crew here, we must have a little party. Bring out the wine. And I say, oh, okay, give us the wine. And suddenly we have this like beautiful little ceremony. And these French, old school, conservative, aristocratic French people with great tenderness bring, like it's a relic, the precious 48-star American flag that they hoisted over their little chateau on that great day in 1944 when American troops liberated them from Nazi tyranny. And they told me, please go home and tell your neighbors that France will always be thankful for the valor and commitment to freedom and the courage that America showed when we were fighting for our very lives, for our very existence. It pains me to hear clueless Americans damning the French for not following us into some wrong-minded war. Europeans know it was Ronald Reagan standing on that wall saying, Gorbachev, tear down this wall, you know, that really our commitment to freedom really was critical in winning the freedom of Europe from the threat from the East. But, you know, I mentioned our brand. I've got a lot of friends in Europe who are a little older than me, born in the 1940s, named Frankie and Johnny. Because there was a time when moms and dads named their kids after American pop stars and GIs. It's amazing. You don't find kids named Frankie and Johnny anymore. You know, and that could happen again. And it will happen again. If America joins the family of nations and respects the fact that other people find different truths to be self-evident, and it just makes a little sense to give everybody a little wiggle room, you see. That's an exciting new age that we're dealing with now. In my travels, I always have to deal with terrorism, and basically I would say it's overrated. You know, somebody's got to stand up and say, get a grip. We're a mighty nation of 300 million people with way more than our share of this world's resources and affluence and so on. We're good people, we know that, but most of this planet looks at us like an empire. And there's never been an empire that didn't have angry people on its fringes playing dirty. You don't play normal conventional warfare against an empire. We learned that in our war for independence. You shoot in from the bushes. We'd love people to line up in formation so we could carpet bomb them, but they're not going to do that. The only way to disagree with the United States is to die or to be a terrorist. You see, that's not my feeling, but that's why there is people playing dirty with us. What's the risk? Okay, there's serious risk, but there's a lot of other things going on. And from a travel point of view, if you're not going to go to Europe because you're worried about terrorism, you've been made a victim of by hysterical media, I'd say. 12 million Americans go to Europe every year, 12 million come back. It's happened all my lifetime. Tomorrow, if an American is beheaded by a jihadist in Madrid, it doesn't change the equation. It is safe to travel. And if you overreact to hysterical media and opportunistic sort of voices, you're part of the problem, frankly. I wish people could stand up and just recognize that fact. There's always been terrorism, there always will be terrorism, we need to be smart about it, but we don't need to compromise our ideals for this, and the reality is that is actually counterproductive. It's very interesting to think about that. I meditate on that whenever I stand in a long line at an airport. I think it's so fun to realize that every country has a 4th of July, it's just on a different date. This is Switzerland, August 1st. I think it's also exciting to know that every country has a different dream. I grew up thinking the world is a pyramid with us on top and everybody else trying to figure it out. Until well into my adulthood, I really believed if they didn't get it, because we care, we had every right to elect a government for them that did understand how to do it right. And then I realized smart people I met with nowhere near the freedom, opportunity, or affluence that I've been blessed with would not trade passports. They like their way of doing it. They don't have the American dream. They've got the Moroccan dream, the Bulgarian dream, the Sri Lankan dream, the Norwegian dream. That's a beautiful thing. That's not an anti-American thing. That's a beautiful thing. We can celebrate that. They respect us, but they've got their own dream.